He told her he could make her disappear, but the woman he threatened runs the FBI. The elevator doors opened with a smooth hiss, spilling a strip of golden light onto the thick carpet of the Grand Summit Hotel's top floor. It was almost midnight in Boise, Idaho, and the hallway was quiet enough that you could hear the faint clink of ice melting in the unattended service cart parked by the corner suite. Officer Craig Hollister stepped out, boots landing heavy, hand resting on the grip of his flashlight. He'd been called to investigate suspicious activity in one of the penthouse suites. The security guard who'd phoned it in had been vague, saying only that a guest didn't look like she belonged there. Craig's jaw flexed as he scanned the doors. Penthouse living always rubbed him the wrong way. Polished brass handles, discreet "do not disturb" signs, a sense of wealth that never seemed to mix with his own life. He found suite 1503 and knocked twice. Inside, Danielle Mercer sat at the wide mahogany desk by the window, the city lights of Boise glittering below her like a scattered trail of stars. Her laptop screen glowed faint blue against her warm brown skin, the silver cuff bracelet on her wrist catching the light when she typed. She wore a tailored charcoal blazer over a cream blouse, her hair pulled back neatly. This was supposed to be a quiet night, reviewing case files, making a few encrypted calls before morning meetings. The knock came again, louder. Danielle looked up, puzzled. "Who on earth is knocking this late?" she muttered. She crossed the plush carpet and opened the door just enough to see the uniformed figure standing there. "Evening, ma'am," Craig said, voice firm but edged with something sharp. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in this suite. Mind showing me some ID? And your keycard?" Danielle frowned. "Suspicious activity? I'm a registered guest. Is there a problem?" Craig stepped forward, his presence filling the doorway. "I'll be the one to decide if there's a problem. I need proof you belong here, right now." Her instinct told her to keep calm. Years of high-pressure work had trained her to never give her cards away too early. "Officer, I'd be happy to cooperate, but maybe you can first tell me what kind of activity we're talking about." Craig's eyes narrowed, scanning the suite behind her. "Like I said, reports from staff. I can get a warrant to search this room if I need to." A flicker of irritation crossed Danielle's face, not because she had anything to hide, but because she'd heard that tone before, and it rarely ended with an apology. But Craig didn't know he'd just stepped into the last room in Boise where he could afford to be wrong. Craig set his boot against the door's edge like he owned the hinge. "Keycard and ID. Let's go." Danielle held his stare, calm, direct. "You can see my ID when your supervisor is on the line, officer, and I'll need your name and badge number." He angled his chest forward so she could read it. "Officer Craig Hollister, City of Boise, badge 2147. He tapped the number plate with 2 fingers. "Now yours." She reached to the entry table, lifted her wallet, and opened it to a standard driver's license. "Danielle Mercer." She let him read it, but didn't offer it up. "Reservation is under my first and last name. The hotel knows I'm here." Craig's eyes flicked to the inside of the suite. The open laptop, a stack of printed documents, paper-clipped at the corner, a half-finished cup of green tea on a coaster. "Routine check. Lady downstairs heard typing and talking. Said you looked out of place." "Out of place is not a crime," Danielle said, keeping her voice even. "What's your probable cause to enter?" "My cause is that something didn't look right. And when things don't look right, I check them." He raised the flashlight and let the beam skate across the carpet like a slow accusation. "Step aside." Danielle didn't move. "You can wait in the hallway while I call the night manager, and we resolve this like professionals." Craig's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm the professional at this door." "Then you'll love this," she said, already dialing. "Front desk, please." Downstairs, the phone rang twice before someone picked up. "Grand Summit front desk, this is Riley." "Hi, Riley. This is Danielle Mercer in 1503. There's an officer here asking to enter my room without a warrant. Would you please send the night manager up?" "Of course, Ms. Mercer," Riley said. "I'll alert Ms. Flores. She's on her way." Craig smirked like the call changed nothing. "While we wait, I'll need to see that key card." Danielle held it up between 2 fingers. "Here it is, registered to me. Would you like Riley to confirm?" He took a step in, close enough to smell the citrus cleaner from the hallway floor. "I'll confirm for myself." Her eyes flicked to the body-worn camera mounted on his shirt. "Is your camera on?" He hesitated. "Policy says it's on when an interaction begins." "Good, leave it that way." Don't tell me how to do my job. I'm reminding you of yours. A tense beat hung between them. Then the elevator dinged at the end of the corridor, and quick, small steps approached. The night manager, Rita Flores, appeared, breath slightly fast, a clipboard tucked under her arm. Officer Hollister, Rita said, looking from him to Danielle. We've confirmed Ms. Mercer is a paying guest in 1503. She checked in at 6:45 p.m., 2-night stay, ID verified at check-in. Is there a problem? Craig didn't turn to her. I received a call about suspicious activity. I need to take a quick look inside. Rita shifted her weight. We can assist with any guest-related concerns, but searches of rooms require proper procedure. Ms. Mercer is in good standing. Danielle extended her keycard toward Rita. If you need to rerun it, I'm fine with that. Not necessary, Rita said, voice firm now. I'll note the interaction for our records. Craig's radio crackled, a dispatcher's voice. Hollister, status check? He pressed the shoulder mic. All good, following up. Rita addressed him again. Officer, you've seen her ID, you've heard confirmation. I'd like to de-escalate and let Ms. Mercer return to her evening. Craig turned his head just enough to show his annoyance. Ma'am, when I get a call about something that feels wrong, I don't walk away because a clerk says it's fine. Rita didn't flinch. I'm the night manager. Manager, clerk. Same to me when I haven't cleared a concern. Danielle's tone cooled a few degrees. Words matter, officer. And so do rights. You're at my door with nothing but a feeling and a rumor. He leaned closer, lower voice. I'm trying to be reasonable. Help me help you. Reasonable is waiting for your supervisor, Danielle said. Reasonable is not entering without cause. He dropped the pretense. You know what's unreasonable? Guests who get mouthy, then act surprised when things go sideways. His eyes held hers. I can make you disappear, and no one will find you. The hallway seemed to shrink. Rita's jaw parted in disbelief. Danielle didn't look away. Your camera is still on, she said. Craig blinked once, twice. You think I care? I think future you will. Rita found her voice. Officer Hollister, that statement is completely unacceptable. I'm calling your watch commander. Craig's hand hovered near the door again. Call whoever you want. Danielle reached into her blazer, slowly, palms open, movement deliberate. She produced a small, dark phone with a thick case, industrial, not pretty. She tapped a single button. Liaison, Boise, Channel 3. A person answered almost immediately, voice quiet and crisp. Go. Danielle didn't break eye contact with Craig. Danielle Mercer, 1503. We have a problem at the door. The voice didn't ask who she was. On it, they said, and the line clicked dead. Craig's brow furrowed. Who exactly did you just call? Someone who actually follows protocol. He shifted tactics. Look, I'm trying to clear a call, and you're making it harder. You're making it dangerous, Danielle replied. For me, and for your badge. Rita stepped between them, not fully, but enough to make space. Ms. Mercer, I'm here. Officer, stand back 6 inches, please. He didn't move. 6 inches won't save anyone if this goes the wrong way. Danielle's voice softened, not to comfort him, but to steady the air. No one is your enemy here. Step back. Wait for your supervisor. We can finish this without anyone getting hurt or humiliated. The elevator dinged again. 2 plainclothes men stepped out, blending into the hotel corridor like forgettable business travelers. They walked with purpose, not swagger, and stopped near the ice machine as if debating snacks. Craig clocked them, dismissing them just as fast. Rita took a breath. We're done at this door for now. Officer Hollister, either present a warrant or wait for your commander. Craig stared at Danielle like she'd stolen something from him that he couldn't name. You think this floor makes you special? I think the law does, she said. He adjusted his belt, searching for the next angle. Show me your company ID. She smiled, barely. You'll see it soon enough. Craig laughed once, short and dry. I doubt it. From down the hall, one of the plainclothes men spoke casually to the other, just loud enough to carry. You'd think by now, people would realize the mic never stops rolling. Craig turned his head, frown sharpening. You talking to me? The man shrugged, eyes mild. Talking in general. Craig's radio chirped again. Hollister, your sergeant is en route. 5 minutes. Danielle exhaled through her nose, long and slow. Good. We'll wait. He tapped his flashlight against his palm like a metronome. "We'll wait," he echoed, but the edge of control had slipped a notch. Rita cleared her throat. "Ms. Mercer, would you like a different room while we sort this out? We can upgrade you to 1501 next door." Danielle shook her head lightly. "No, I'm fine here." She tilted the door inward a few inches, keeping the chain engaged. "I'll be right inside with the door open. We'll keep everything visible." Craig's eyes flicked to the chain, then back to her face. "Don't try anything cute." "I'm writing an email," she said. "That's the extent of my plan." He stared at her for 3 long seconds, then shifted his gaze to the plainclothes men again. Something about them nagged. Shoes wrong for sales guys, posture too alert. But he looked away. Inside the suite, Danielle sat back at the desk, screen still glowing with layered documents. She placed the small dark phone beside the laptop and typed a short line into a blank email draft. Contact made, statement recorded. The hallway held its breath, but the next voice to arrive wouldn't be the one Craig expected, and it would change the temperature of the entire floor. The elevator doors slid open again, and this time it wasn't another guest or a bellhop stepping out. It was a man in a dark gray uniform shirt, sleeves rolled up to the forearms with 3 chevrons stitched in gold on each shoulder. Sergeant Bill Rayner, late 50s, broad frame, voice known for cutting through noise like a chainsaw through wet wood. "Hollister," Rayner called down the hall, his boots making the carpet thud under each step. "Report." Craig straightened like a school kid caught with a slingshot. "Suspicious guest, no proof of stay. Hotel clerk says otherwise, but I haven't cleared it." Rayner stopped between Craig and Rita. His eyes flicked to the chain on Danielle's door, then to Danielle herself. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Rayner. Am I correct you are a paying guest?" Danielle's tone was measured, not warm but not combative. "You are. The front desk confirmed that already. I've shown my ID and key card. Officer Hollister still insists on entering my room without a warrant." Rayner's gaze shifted to Craig. "She's got ID, key card, front desk confirmation, and you're still pressing entry?" Craig's voice went defensive. "Her behavior's evasive, and we had a call about—" Rayner cut him off. "We don't kick doors in over typing and talking, Hollister. You know that." Danielle leaned slightly forward. "Sergeant, this isn't just a misunderstanding. Your officer told me he could make me disappear." Rayner's eyes snapped to Craig. "You say that?" Craig's mouth opened, shut, opened again. "She's twisting it. I was telling her what happens when people make things harder than they need to be." "That's not how I heard it," Rita interjected quietly. Rayner's stare hardened. "Body cam rolling?" Craig hesitated, thumb tapping the unit on his chest. "Yeah, it's on." "Good," Rayner said flatly. "Then we'll pull it right now." Craig looked away. "You don't need to make this bigger than—" "I said now," Rayner barked. Craig unclipped the unit and handed it over. Rayner turned to Danielle. "Ma'am, if you're comfortable, I'll have you make a statement after we clear this hallway." "That's fine," she replied, though her eyes never left Craig. Craig crossed his arms. "She's just looking for trouble." Danielle's voice was like steel with velvet edges. "If trouble was what I wanted, Officer Hollister, you'd already have it." Something in her delivery made Craig falter. Only for a second, but it was there. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm not the one here ignoring procedure, you are." She glanced past him to the 2 plainclothes men near the ice machine. One of them subtly tapped his ear. She nodded almost imperceptibly. Rayner noticed. "Friends of yours, ma'am?" "You could say that," Danielle said. Craig's head tilted. "Who are you really?" She didn't answer right away, just closed her laptop and slid it into a slim black case. "I think you're about to find out." Rayner looked between them, clearly sensing he was missing something. "What's going on here?" From down the hall, the plainclothes men started walking toward them. Their steps were steady, controlled. Craig's hand twitched toward his belt again. "Relax," Danielle said. "They're here for me, not you. Yet." Craig's brow furrowed. "Yet?" One of the men spoke first, flashing a badge so fast it almost looked like a trick of the light. "Special Agent Troy Willis, Federal Bureau of Investigation. This floor's secure now." Craig laughed under his breath. "The FBI? For a typing noise complaint?" Danielle finally stood, straightened her blazer, and walked to the doorway. The chain rattled softly as she unhooked it. "No, Officer Hollister. for a federal operation that you just walked right into. Craig's face drained a shade paler. You're, what, some admin? She stepped into the hallway, her eyes never leaving his. Deputy Director, and every second you've been here, you've been on my camera too. She lifted the dark phone from her pocket and turned the screen toward him. A tiny red light blinked in the corner. Rayner's mouth tightened. Deputy Director Mercer? That's right, she said. And now that we've established who's who, we can address the fact that your officer threatened a federal agent. Craig opened his mouth to argue, but the words stuck somewhere in his throat. But Danielle wasn't here just to teach one officer a lesson. What came next would show that his mistake had already pulled in forces much larger than himself. The hallway felt heavier now, not loud, not chaotic, but charged in a way that made even the patterned carpet seem like it was waiting for something. Craig's jaw worked as he looked from Danielle to Rayner, then back again, like his mind was trying to rewrite the last 10 minutes into something less career-ending. Danielle stepped past him, slow and deliberate, until she was standing between the sergeant and the two federal agents. Sergeant Rayner, I'm in Boise for a reason I can't disclose in detail right now. What I can tell you is that your officer's interference has already been noted in a live report to our field office. Rayner gave a curt nod, his gaze darkening toward Craig. I'll deal with him. Not just yet, Danielle said. We need to be clear on the chain of events. That recording on his body cam, paired with mine, will go into our file. We'll need statements from both of you and the hotel staff. Craig crossed his arms again, trying for a smirk that didn't land. You really expect me to believe the deputy director of the FBI just happens to be holed up in a hotel room in Boise? Believe what you want, Danielle replied. Facts don't change because you don't like them. One of the plainclothes agents, Troy Willis, stepped forward slightly. We can verify her position through your commander if you'd like, Officer Hollister, though I imagine once we call in, this floor will be swarming in about 15 minutes. Craig's eyes darted to Rayner. Sarge. Rayner held up a hand. Don't. Danielle continued, her tone cool but steady. I was in the middle of reviewing sensitive material when you knocked. Material related to a joint federal and local case. Your interruption compromised my work and could have compromised an operation. That's not something I'm willing to brush aside. Craig tried to meet her gaze, but she didn't blink. Look, I was doing my job. Your job is to investigate with cause, Danielle cut in. Not to threaten people into compliance, not to use language you can't defend, and certainly not to push your way into a federal agent's workspace. Rita, still holding her clipboard, spoke up. I can provide the security footage from the hallway if needed. It shows him standing at her door for several minutes before the sergeant arrived. That'll help, Danielle said. Make sure it's backed up and time-stamped. Troy glanced at his watch, then murmured to the other agent. They both nodded slightly before Troy addressed Danielle. We should let them know about the briefing in 20. Craig's head snapped up. Briefing? Danielle's reply was pointed. The kind you won't be invited to. The other agent, a tall man with a buzz cut, finally spoke. Ma'am, the conference room on the 3rd floor is secure. Want us to escort you down now? Not yet, she said. We're finishing this conversation. She turned back to Craig. Officer Hollister, here's what's going to happen. You're going to remain on this floor until my team finishes our sweep. You're going to keep your radio on and your hands where everyone can see them. And then you're going to sit down with internal affairs before sunrise. Craig's smirk vanished. You can't order me around. Deputy directors can, Troy said flatly. Rayner rubbed a hand down his face. Craig, shut your mouth before you dig the hole any deeper. Danielle reached for the handle of her suite door, pausing just before she stepped inside. One last thing. You said you could make me disappear. I'd like you to remember that the only reason you're standing here in uniform right now is because I've chosen not to make that happen for you. Craig's throat bobbed as he swallowed, but he said nothing. She stepped back into the suite, the door clicking shut behind her. Out in the hallway, Rayner exhaled slowly, turning to his officer. You have no idea what you've stepped in, do you? Craig's reply was barely audible. Guess I do now. But Danielle knew the real storm wasn't in the hallway. It was waiting downstairs, and every person in that lobby was about to see just how much weight her name carried. The ride down to the lobby felt like a slow descent into a different world. Danielle stood in the middle of the elevator, Troy on one side, the taller agent on the other. Neither said a word. They didn't need to. When the doors opened, the Grand Summit's polished marble floor reflected the warm glow of the chandeliers overhead. A few late-night guests lingered near the front desk, their curiosity instantly pulled toward the sight of three people who didn't walk like tourists. Danielle crossed the lobby with an air that made space open in front of her without asking. Rita had already called ahead. The night security staff was posted at discreet angles, eyes following her path. At the center of the lobby, a cluster of plainclothes agents stood in quiet formation. One of them, a woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a leather folder under her arm, stepped forward. "Deputy Director," she greeted. Danielle took the folder, flipping it open to scan the brief notes inside. "This is the guest who phoned in the complaint?" she asked, voice even. "Yes, ma'am," the woman replied. "She's seated over there." She nodded toward a corner of the lobby where a middle-aged woman sat stiffly on a sofa, hands wrapped tight around her purse straps. Her eyes darted toward the scene, then back to the floor. Danielle closed the folder. "Bring her over." Two agents approached the woman, speaking in low, measured tones before guiding her toward Danielle. "Mrs. Hadley," Danielle said, reading the name from the file. "You reported someone in a penthouse suite as suspicious. Why?" Mrs. Hadley shifted uncomfortably. "She didn't look like the kind of person who stays in a place like this." The words hung there, exposed and ugly. Danielle's voice stayed calm. "The kind of person. And what does that mean to you?" The woman hesitated, color rising in her cheeks. "I didn't mean anything by it. I just thought—" "You thought wrong," Danielle said, her tone flat enough to slice through the space between them. "And your wrong assumption set off a chain of events that wasted police time, disrupted a federal operation, and put your local department in the position of having to answer to mine." Mrs. Hadley's mouth opened, then closed. "I'm sorry." "Don't say it to me," Danielle replied. "Say it to the people you endangered." She handed the folder back to the other agent. "We'll need her statement documented and signed." As Mrs. Hadley was escorted to a side table, the elevator doors opened again. Rayner stepped out first, then Craig. His posture had changed, shoulders tighter, chin lower, as he clocked the number of federal agents now in the room. Danielle waited until he was close enough to hear without raising her voice. "This," she said, sweeping her gaze over the scene, "is the weight of what you walked into tonight. Every badge here answers to me. Every camera here has recorded you, and every person in this lobby knows the story isn't in your favor." Craig shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Look, I didn't know who you were." "That's the point," Danielle said. "You shouldn't have to know someone's title to treat them with respect." Rayner took a half step forward, addressing her. "Deputy Director Mercer, I'll be filing my own report to Internal Affairs tonight, and I'll personally make sure they have your recording." "Good," Danielle said. "They'll need it." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Troy broke the silence. "Ma'am, the conference room's secure. Press is off the property. We're ready when you are." Danielle nodded once, but her eyes stayed on Craig. "Officer Hollister, I could have you removed from duty before you make it back to your cruiser, but I'm going to give you something more lasting than a suspension." He raised his eyes warily. "What's that?" "The chance to learn from the fact that your badge isn't a shield from consequence," she said. "And if you ever threaten someone like you did me, they might not be as willing to give you that chance." Craig's face gave nothing back, but the faint tremor in his jaw said he'd heard her. But the real consequences weren't going to be played out in front of the lobby guests. They were waiting in a private room upstairs with documents that could end a career before sunrise. The conference room on the third floor was nothing special to look at. Neutral walls, a polished table, a coffee station that smelled faintly burnt. But the air inside was different, closed, controlled. Every person present had a reason to be there, and Craig Hollister was now one of the few who didn't like his. Danielle sat at the head of the table, a slim laptop open in front of her. To her right, Troy Willis queued up body cam footage on a larger monitor mounted on the wall. Rayner stood off to the side, arms folded, his expression somewhere between frustration and resignation. "Let's start," Danielle said. The room dimmed slightly as the video began. Craig's voice filled the space. "Key card and ID. Let's go." The tone was sharper than even he'd remembered. Then came his words about making her disappear. Hearing them played back, with every pause and inflection intact, stripped away whatever justifications he'd been clinging to. Rayner glanced at him once. Just once. When the clip ended, Danielle tapped a key and froze the screen on Craig's face mid-sentence. "That," she said, is the moment you crossed from unprofessional into dangerous. That's the moment where procedure ended and personal impulse took over. Craig swallowed. I was trying to get control of the situation. No, Danielle replied. You were trying to assert dominance over someone you thought couldn't push back. Silence sat heavy in the room. Troy spoke next. Deputy Director, per your request, we've synced this with the hallway camera footage. The timestamps match. No missing segments. Thank you, she said, then turned back to Craig. This footage, plus the hotels, plus statements from witnesses, will be sent to your internal affairs unit before the hour is up. A copy will also go to the state's post council for review of your certification. Craig's jaw tightened. So that's it? You're just going to end my career? Danielle's tone didn't shift. I'm not ending your career, Officer Hollister. Your actions tonight are. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling hard through his nose. You don't get it. Every night we get calls from people who... I get it, she interrupted. I've worked the street. I know the calls, the false alarms, the noise you have to sort through. But I also know the difference between investigating a lead and letting bias drive your decisions. And so does your sergeant. Rayner didn't move, didn't speak. Danielle closed her laptop. You'll remain on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. You'll also complete mandatory de-escalation and bias training before you even think about wearing that badge again. And whether you pass or fail is no longer up to your department. It'll be decided by a state review board. Craig looked down at the table. No smirk this time. No quick comeback. Just a man trying to process the reality that tomorrow morning his name would be on more desks than he'd ever wanted. Rayner stepped forward finally. I'll escort him out. Danielle nodded. Sergeant, I know this isn't the conversation you wanted to have tonight, but you're doing the right thing. As Craig stood, Troy handed Rayner a slim flash drive. Everything's on here. Redundant copies already in the cloud. Craig didn't meet anyone's eyes on the way to the door. When the door closed behind them, the room stayed still for a beat. Then Danielle spoke, more to herself than anyone else. It's never about just one night. It's about the nights that came before it, and the ones that could come after if no one steps in. Troy asked quietly, You think he'll learn from it? I think he doesn't have a choice, she said. But Danielle also knew that lessons only stick if people want them to. And the real change wasn't about one officer in Boise, but about making sure every badge holder understood there's no immunity from accountability. By the time Danielle stepped back into the lobby, the space had quieted. The curious guests were gone, replaced by the low hum of the night staff, returning to their normal rhythm. Rita stood at the front desk, glancing up as Danielle passed. Everything settled? Rita asked. For tonight, Danielle replied. Thank you for standing your ground earlier. Not everyone would have. Rita gave a small smile. Didn't feel like a choice. Right is right. Danielle paused, meeting her eyes. That's where it starts. One person deciding they won't be silent when something's wrong. She moved toward the revolving door, Troy falling in step beside her. Outside, the streetlights painted the wet pavement in fractured gold. The cool air cut through the tension she'd been carrying since the knock on her door. Troy broke the silence. You know, most people in your position wouldn't have wasted breath on him. They'd have taken the badge and been done. That's the problem, Danielle said. We're quick to remove, slow to rebuild. If there's any hope of change, it's in making sure the next decision he makes in uniform is better than the last one. They stopped near the curb where a black SUV idled. Danielle looked back at the hotel, at the glass walls hiding 100 small stories that would play out tonight without her ever knowing. The truth is, respect and accountability aren't optional. They're the whole job. Without them, the badge is just metal and plastic. Troy nodded. And without people willing to call it out, nothing changes. Danielle opened the SUV's door, pausing for one last thought. Every person has a line they won't cross. For some, it's their ethics. For others, it's whatever they think they can get away with. The only way to know which is to hold everyone to the same standard. She got in, the door closing with a solid click. The SUV pulled away, leaving the Grand Summit behind. Inside, the hotel would go back to its late-night stillness. Upstairs, someone else would drift off to sleep without a clue that just hours earlier, a hallway conversation had shifted the trajectory of a man's career. And somewhere across town, an officer would be sitting in a quiet kitchen, staring at his badge, and realizing for the first time that power without accountability isn't power at all. It's just a countdown to the moment someone takes it away. Authority is a responsibility, not a shield. Treat every interaction like the other person's dignity matters as much as your own, because it does. If you've ever been in a position to speak up when someone crossed the line, you know it's not easy. But silence doesn't protect anyone. Hold people accountable, no matter their title. And if you wear a badge, remember, it's not the medal that earns respect, it's the way you use it.